it's been years, and I can actually talk to my dad about, his trauma and why did he react to alcohol the way he did and how that affected me. And he even gave me advice, and he was like, when you have your kids, maybe you should approach it this angle instead of this angle, the way that I went for it. And I'm like, that's a great idea, Dad. You will be there for these conversations, hopefully, but hopefully we can break this stigma in our family, and we can break the cycle in our family. And it was just like a beautiful conversation to have.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
Hey everybody, it's Liz. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get into the episode in just a moment, and I can't wait for you to meet Keithy. Just wanted to give you a heads up that in this conversation, we do discuss suicide and self-harm. So if that's an area that doesn't feel safe for you, then go ahead and skip this week's episode, and we will see you next week. And otherwise, let's get into the show.
Yo, and welcome to another episode of Rise, Recover, Live, the podcast. I am your host, Bryce III.
And I am your other host. I feel like I need a better way to say that. Other host feels like a weird title, but we're going with it.
It still feels like co-host. Just so a heads up, guys, I know we've been listening for a while, and if you've been listening from day one, Liz and I, we always talking in the back about how to make this show better and how to make the space a better space for us to show up and feel like we're represented and supported and propped up. And so if you all don't remember, I used to come on and say, hi, I'm Bryce III, I'm the host. And then I would say, and this is my co-host, Liz. But that we both agreed felt like, wait a minute. So wait, you're the host.
Am I your co-pilot? I don't understand.
So even other hosts, it can still kind of feel like a certain way, huh, Liz?
So what do I say? And I am Liz McKean. Also a host.
There you go.
We're going to have to work about it. We're going to workshop this. Go to the Phoenix app, go to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast group, and tell us how should we do this? Give us some suggestions. Let's take it from the community. How about that?
Now that we opened it to input, they're going to go in there and say, you should introduce yourself as a unicorn.
Oh my God, I should introduce myself as a unicorn.
As corn in general, because you love the corn song.
Oh my gosh, that's another story. All right, so Bryce, who do we have on the podcast? As you can tell, we've already had so much fun, even in the pre-podcast room. So it's so much of that is due to this really fun guest that we have. So Bryce, who we got today?
Yes. I am excited to have this guest on today. Actually, when I heard that this guest would be our guest today, I don't know. I don't know if anybody has experienced the experience of thinking of somebody and then you have the shoulder unshrug, this will be an easy episode. This will be an episode that I think will feed into me and into all of the people that are listening today. This guest is the program coordinator in LA for the Phoenix LA chapter and a self-described short, funny Latina who loves Chipotle and all things Disney. Y'all help me welcome Keithy. What's up, Keithy?
What's up, mi gente? I love the short Latina who loves Chipotle and Disney. Vibe.
So how do you, because I didn't want to say, I didn't want to butcher your name. How do you say your whole name?
The way that my mom yells at me, or just how there's different ways. But so it's Keithy, and it's spelled Keithy. My mom didn't know English, and instead of being Latina and naming me Maria or Katrina, she wanted to assimilate, and she got me Keithy. So there's that. Second name is Arabella. Last name is Orellana. There's technically 3 more last names after that. So when I'm in trouble and I get all 6 names, I'm like, ooh.
That gives you time to run.
It does. It gives me a 30-second head start where I'm like, vámonos, let's go.
That's right. I got 3 more names to get out of here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, if somebody takes the time to
we're
say
so
all
glad that
6
you're here
names,
today.
it's a wrap.
Yeah, no, all 6 names is a hustle. But now I want to do it for my kids, and I'm like, you're gonna get 6 names too. Like, I'll just make some stuff up, like, just to give them a head start too when they're in trouble.
And so with all that said, we got into it very early that you come from, like, you're steeped in culture. Like, there's a certain culture that you were raised in. And so talking about recovery or your specific recovery experience, how has the culture in which you had come up in, how has that affected like your own personal recovery? And let's just get straight into it. Like, how do you define your recovery?
Yeah, so being Latina really played a role in my recovery. So for like specifics, I'm Central American. My mom is from Nicaragua and my dad is from El Salvador. And so culturally speaking, like I was raised in LA, which is very, very embedded in Mexican culture.
Mm,
So a lot of the time growing up, like identity wise, I didn't feel like I was Latina enough. And that played a role in my recovery because alcohol is a huge part of the Latino community. Like it's in a lot of songs, it's in a lot of like celebrations and festivities. And so when I started sobering up, I almost felt like I went back to like when I was like 10, 11, feeling like I wasn't Latina enough because now I'm taking this part of like our culture traditions, for lack of a better word, like, and I was getting them removed. So it was really awkward when I first started sobering up and I couldn't keep up with like my cousins or my uncles.
mm.
And I was just like, damn, like, am I actually Latina now? And I went through like a point where I was like, I don't feel like I'm Latina enough because I'm sober.
I remember, I think you had also mentioned just when we were talking earlier, Keithy, about how like your age kind of added to that discomfort.
Mhm.
So I feel like there were a lot of things. There were a lot of like areas where you felt like recovery, you just were not feeling the same as a lot of people in the recovery community. And then to also look in your own like family and culture and feel like you're not quite fitting in there. Like that's a lot of barriers to something that is already really, really challenging. So how, like you're still here, like you're doing it, like that's incredible. So I mean, if you don't mind telling a little bit of like your story and how you got to recovery and like some of the tools you used to stay here, I think any of those would be things that would be really valuable because I feel like that's incredible, the amount of barriers you've overcome within this one thing, this one hard thing in life, and there's so many hard things.
Thank you. Yeah, my recovery story is a little different than a lot of people. I didn't actually. So my drug of choice is alcohol, or was alcohol. And I didn't start drinking until I was 22. Like most people, when they tell me their story, they're like really young, and I'm like, wow. I didn't start until I was 22. Alcoholism runs deep in my family, but it skipped my dad because my dad saw what it did to his brothers and my grandfather, and so my dad was the complete opposite. He was anti-alcohol, not even like, oh, I'll take a beer. Like my dad was like, if you take a beer, you're an alcoholic. So his mentality was very toxic. And so, and I'm a daddy's girl. And so for me, it was like, I don't ever want to do anything to disappoint my dad. So I hate alcohol too. So my relationship with alcohol was never healthy. I never learned that you can have a healthy amount. Like I never was taught how to be a normie. It was like, you're either an alcoholic or you're not. And so I didn't drink. I spent my 21st birthday at Disneyland. Like truly, like no alcohol, having the best time of my life. Like I was like, I don't need alcohol. But by the time I was 22, I was close to graduating college. I was a straight A student, literally had a 4.0 GPA, had a job already aligned. I knew I was going to move back home. There was no reason for me to be stressed about school anymore. So I was kind of like, when am I ever going to have the sense of like lack of responsibility in my life ever again? Probably never. So let me just have some fun. And it all started, I'm not even joking, at a cheap Italian restaurant by the university. And they were like, we have this cheap wine. And I was like, why not? Let's just try it. And it just went downhill after that. So my crash was like super fast. By the time I was 23, it was like hiding bottles of vodka and like stashing them in rooms. I also took prescription medication in a way that was not meant to be used. And so it was like the pills and the alcohol, mixing it together just so that I can reach a sort of high that I naturally wasn't able to reach. And so it kept going and going. I brought it back home to me because I used to go to school in the Bay Area. So when I moved back to LA, my family saw it and they were like, "You're an alcoholic." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I didn't lose my job. I graduated." Like, I put all these like almost excuses of like, I'm not an alcoholic because I don't fit these check marks. But like in hindsight, it was like, no, dude, you're like an actual alcoholic. And so once I realized like I needed to sober up, I tried and I dropped it like within like a month or two. And then I tried again and I stayed sober for about 9 months. And one trip to Vegas ruined it. And then I tried again. And now I've been fortunate to say that December is going to be 4 years. So took 3 tries, but we're here.
And I think that speaks to the self-diagnosis that alcoholism or addiction is, right? Like it's that thing where we can look at somebody else and say, you show qualities of an alcoholic, or you show qualities of an addict, but that doesn't do anything for the person that's actually going through the things that they're going through. And so for, us to look at people who may judge us and it's like, oh, I know that this person is going to think I'm an alcoholic, or like that may be something that nudges us towards like making a change, but it isn't until like there's that internal dialogue where like, yo, like this is something going on. I don't know what's going on, but something going on. And I got to figure it out for me to where like that real change could start to take place. So I think there's like bits and pieces of that in your story, especially like with how you talked about your dad being anti-alcohol. One beer and you're an alcoholic. And it's like, okay, dude, like, chill out, right? But it takes for us to be able to look at our own circumstances and see like, yo, like there's something that needs to change. Congratulations on 4 years as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I think a lot of it has to do with age too, because like everyone would be like, we're an alcoholic, yay! Because we were like sorority girls about to graduate. It was like almost cool to call yourself an alcoholic because you could get drunk Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and still go to school on Monday, after you chill on Sunday. Like, and it was like this title that like we said it as a joke, and that's why I kept thinking like, I'm not an actual alcoholic. I'm just like a cool alcoholic. Like, it was like a play. Like, it was like a pretend thing that like, it wasn't until like the day that I had my last drink, I was over at a friend's house and it was December 23rd and we were all just like having like chill wine, and I was the one that went insane. I went with wine, I got tequila, like I got so many, and all we were doing was literally sitting at home listening to the new Bad Bunny album. That was all we were doing. We weren't gonna go out. We weren't gonna do anything. It's like Christmas Eve. Like there was no reason for me to get that drunk, and I just wanted to. And so Christmas Eve, my friend whose house we were over, she's really, really, really close to her family, and they have a traditional Christmas Eve morning hike. And she couldn't go because she was taking care of me. And that's when I realized, like, your alcoholism isn't just affecting your friends. It is now affecting the loved ones for them. It's like expanding. And so like how much disrespect, I think in the Latino community too, we have like a really big thing about respecting your elders. Like how much disrespect are you giving to her elders now? Because now she's missing on a Christmas tradition because of you? Like, really, Keithy? So it was like, that was my awakening when it was like no longer a joke anymore.
And like, was that conversation with yourself, was that something that was always inherent within your process? Like, did you always have that ability to self-reflect and to check yourself? Or were the extreme circumstances of which you were experiencing, was that pushing you to having that conversation for the first time?
I think there's I don't know who says it. I don't know if it's Marilyn Monroe or like Audrey Hepburn, but there's a quote that's like, if you don't love me at my best or my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. It's something like that. It was a very like MySpace era quote that you would put on your profile. But I truly believe that. I was like, if my best friends don't take care of me when I'm like drunk off my ass, then they don't deserve my happy energy. They don't deserve when I'm like, the best. And so it took a lot of convincing myself that like, bitch, settle down. Like, you are not all that. You need to tone yourself down. And this is actually an issue. Because at first, my parents thought it was an issue. And I was like, you guys are old. And like, you have a huge negative viewpoint of alcohol. You don't even know. And then it would be like my close friends. And I'm like, yeah, but when are you going to complain? You still love me in your life. And so it just kept expanding to the point where it's like, up to what point are you going to start like realizing it? So it kind of came at a shock. Every time I try to convince myself that maybe I needed help, I kind of just reiterate that quote, like, no, you don't need it. But it wasn't until that day specifically where I was like, you're really hurting other people too. Like, humble yourself. Remind yourself, like, this is not who you want to be. And then this is the sobriety that has stuck. Because all the other sobrieties, I was trying to sober up for another reason. I was trying to sober up because I got my dream job at the time. And I was like, ooh, we're going to stay sober for this job. That didn't last. We're going to stay sober for my mom. That didn't last. It wasn't until I literally had to check in myself and be like, girl, you're what are you doing?
Yeah. How much of that process, like I'm hearing you say, that really the big aha moment was when you were able to really when you forced yourself to look at like the damage you were causing and the loved ones that were suffering, and that wasn't okay, that kind of like getting that whole like ego kind of to a place that you were like really being honest with yourself. But was there any level of like, I also need to stop hurting myself? Like, I also need to like be able to really like myself and love myself enough to know that like I don't have to keep digging this hole, like that rock bottom that I think I have to hit. Maybe if I set down the shovel that I already did.
Yeah, no, there was definitely a moment that I was like, I do deserve better. But it didn't come until afterwards. At first, it came with like, this isn't who you want to be. Like, you don't want to be, like, growing up, my mom was like, I don't like that friend. I didn't want to be the friend that my friend's mom would talk about. I didn't want to do that. And so I was like, you are not like that. Your mama taught you better. Be respectful. And so it started from there into like, why do you drink? What's the point? Like, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but like, I do get told a lot, like, your energy is very high. So like, in my mind, I'm like, what am I trying to do with the alcohol that I naturally can't reach? Like, what is not clicking for me? So it was a lot of like moments where I just had a conversation with myself and like literally talk to myself out loud. Like, girl, what are you doing? I don't know, dude. Like, literally just talking to myself to try to get myself to admit like it was an actual problem. And it was a problem for so many reasons. Alcoholism runs in the family. I had a negative viewpoint from alcohol from my dad's point of view. Like, there was just so much that I needed to unravel. And it wasn't as easy as just like, oh, okay, I'm an alcoholic, let me just go to an AA meeting. It was like, no, I had to go to therapy. I had to really talk it out. I had to force myself and just like tell myself like, what is going on? So it was an awakening, but it didn't come immediately. It was something I had to work on consistently.
So like, and I really like want to unravel this because a lot of times we live our stories, so we may not know the significance of our journey. But you're the way you talk, like you talk in a way, having reflection conversations with myself, seeking therapy and counseling. Like, these are things that for some may be big hurdles and like mountains to climb. And there is a bit of resistance when like even trying to lean into these things, or maybe there is not even like a reference point for what these things are. So like where are you getting these inclinations to like seek therapy, seek counseling, have conversations with yourself? Like, are you just naturally reflective? Like, is that part of your culture? Like, where does that stem from? Is that something that's always been a part of your life?
No, actually. So I am clinically diagnosed as bipolar 2. And when I got diagnosed at 19, a lot of it was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, why I behaved this way in childhood and teenhood and all that. But I got diagnosed at 19, and it wasn't until I was like 22 that I was like, maybe I should go to therapy. And it was funny because I started going to therapy right around the time I started picking up alcohol. And so for me, all I went in directly was to deal with being bipolar, to learn how to like cope with viewing the world the way I view it. But I just kept ignoring alcohol. It's like, she don't need to know about that. My therapist don't got to worry about that. So once I actually sobered up and to the longevity sobriety that I am at now, that's when I was like, all of this goes together. Like all of this, it's alcoholism is not its own issue from my bipolar, which is not its own issue from the way I was raised, which is not the own issue. Like I could break this up into so many layers, but they all intertwined with each other. And so having to sit down and be like, these all go together instead of trying to tackle them as individual issues is what allowed me to be reflective. And I think being bipolar is almost like an advantage for me because when I start spiraling a little, I can catch it. And I'm like, oh, no, that's a bipolar flag. Settle down, revisit, do this, do that. So I kind of call it like a mini superpower sometimes.
It's especially awareness of it, like awareness of at least having a language around it. Like saying here with attention deficit, like things that used to like, I don't know why these things are the way that they are. And I don't know why, like I'm so in the dumps and I don't know why I can't concentrate. And I don't know why, like I'm having this spiral and my whole house is like, it's feeling like it's closing in on me. But once I started like receiving the language, it's like, oh, that's what it is. We can identify it. If I can identify it, then I know kind of what's going on. And I know how to kind of like lean into the tools that I continue to cultivate that allow for me to show up for myself in that way. And so I would agree with you that it is a superpower. So with the holistic approach, like approaching everything as a contribution to the whole, how did that process shift from when you were just like, you were going to counseling, but you was like, don't worry about the alcoholism, right? Or worry about the alcohol at all. Like, how did that shift when you started to like really focus on everything? What were some tools that allowed for you to integrate these different parts of your life and bring it all in as one?
I think one of the tools was like in bipolar, like the way, and I don't want to speak for all the bipolar people out here. Like this is just my truth and my story. My therapist was very like, every time that you have a very manic or depressive episode, like in my spectrum, recognize what is adding to that and what is helping to it. And so I realized like every time I was depressed, it like alcohol became like the secondary thought. Like I'm not having a good day, let me pop up a bottle. And so I started realizing 1 + 1 = 2. Why does this result to alcohol? And that's when I like really, it was just continuously like having conversations with myself being like, what about alcohol is making me feel like it's fixing the depression episode? And why is alcohol my choice? And so I started breaking it down to like, these obviously aren't separate issues. They're similar issues. I may not need one to help the other, but they're not helping each other right now. So once I got a hold of like my bipolar toolkit, it was like, okay, now I can tackle alcoholism in the way that like alcoholism affects me as a bipolar person specifically. So that's kind of what shifted it, was having to deal with being bipolar first, recognize those tendencies, and then learning how can I help use these tools to help my alcoholism.
Yeah. What was it like within your family and your culture when it came to getting a mental health diagnosis? Because that clearly came before the substance use. And I know in a lot of cultures where that's something we don't talk about it and this is just bad and it's over there, often the mental health diagnoses is too. And I know, I've had that experience. And so I'm just curious what yours was when you were 19 and before.
It wasn't real. That's what my parents would say. That's what my family say. Mind you, this was like 10 years ago. There's a lot of growth in my family. My family's very 100%. Like supportive now. They've learned. But during that time period, that's a white people problem. We don't have those issues because we came from this country. You don't know what depression is. We left it was just so many like, they had a hard life, so you can't have a hard life because you're college educated and you're this and you're that. And it's like, bruh, this is not my fault. My brain is like that. Technically, it's your fault. Like you made me. Like it was very like, genetics. Why are you putting this on me? It's genetics. And so it was a lot of that. It was a lot of like, not necessarily we don't believe you, but like, it's not real in your case. Like, they knew bipolar existed, they knew depression existed, but they didn't think it was my case. And it wasn't until trigger warning, I ended up on suicide watch. And that's when my family was like, oh, this isn't funny anymore. This isn't a joke. You actually are sick. And I was like, surprise! Of course I am. It just took you a long time to get to the party, but welcome to the party now. So that's when the family completely changed. And that has to do with Latino culture too. Like, I feel like in the Latino culture, a lot of it, first generation, we talk a lot about, like, online, we talk a lot about like how mental illness is dismissed, particularly because our parents don't understand that. There's no way to say bipolar in Spanish. Like, bipolar does not really exist. And so, like, coming to this country, all of a sudden their kid who's in college and has more toys than they ever imagined, has all these clothes. How can you be depressed? How can you be this? So it was an awakening, and I'm really glad. I'm in a very fortunate position to now have open conversations with my parents consistently and be like, do you remember when this happened when I was a kid? Okay, so this is why this happened. And my parents being like, oh, okay, I understand now. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, Mom. Good talk.
So let's talk about 10/17/2011, right? And then you got December 23rd, 2018. What is the significance of those dates?
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what are we talking about? There's a lot of numbers. I'm bad at math. So I was like, what are we doing? So 10/17/2011 is what I consider my recovery date, my recovery birthday. It was the day after my first suicide attempt, because I've tried multiple times and thank God I suck at it. But I attempted and I failed, and I realized the next morning when I woke up, I deserve help. And that was the first time, like, I ever kind of was kind to myself and was like, I deserve help. Like, I do not deserve to die because I can't figure out what's going on in my life. Like, something can get fixed. So get help. So I consider that my recovery birthday. Since then, I haven't been sober since then. I haven't not self-harmed. I've attempted suicide attempts. There's a lot of things that I've tried since then. So for a lot of people, it's kind of like, what are you even celebrating? But for me, it's like, it's the day that I decided I needed help and I deserved help. Did I get it immediately? Did I fix everything? Absolutely not. But it was the day I convinced myself that I'm worth it. And then December 23rd, 2018 is my actual sobriety birthday. It's the last time that I ever had alcohol. It's the last time that I drank, and that's something that I'm very proud of. I'm not even gonna lie, I'm being very transparent. Like, Saturday, I almost cracked. I was having a very bad day, and I had a bottle of rum nearby, and I was just like, you know what? Let's do it. What's the point? And I just stopped myself, and I was like, there's so much going on. This podcast was a reason why. I was like, you can't go on Monday and be like, talk about your sobriety when you broke it on Saturday. So thank you for letting me be here. Like, y'all were a reason. But like, those are the two dates that are very special to me.
Wow. So a couple of things there, but definitely I want to speak on that, where it's like, I was coming home from the Rise event, and it really had dawned on me, because like, in recovery, like, there's no shortage of opportunities to feel the ways that I felt when I was using actively. And I would feel this way, and then what would be my response to that feeling is that I would use. And now I still feel those ways. Like, I still have all of these feelings, probably even stronger, right? But I have built up a different toolbox that allows for me to show up for those feelings in different ways now, versus like using and running away from those feelings. But two, it's almost like I've built a culture. Like, I've surrounded myself with people, places, and things that support my recovery and almost depend on me. So even if it's like, I think of like 30 things to do before I would think about like using, because it's like, like you said, like, how am I supposed to show up and host a podcast if I got drunk this past Saturday? So like, and I think that's an important contribution of the Phoenix and other communities and things that hold us accountable to this life that we've decided to work for. And I think that's just a testament to like it being a daily practice too, and continuing to find, because as we grow and we develop in our recoveries and in our lives, it's like we'll need more things. So to continue to search and see what it is that we need and get around the people, the places, and things that will continue to feed into who it is that we're becoming, because it's always a process of unfolding, right? And then two, I wanted to touch a bit on your two dates and in that process of showing up for yourself for the first time. So it sounds to me like a fundamental shift in mindset and spirit set. Can you speak a little bit more on that? I deserve this. Like I deserve help, even though like things you didn't. And I want to tread lightly here because I don't want to say like, because who has a monopoly on what's right? Like you began your journey when you say you began your journey. You know what I'm saying? So like, I want to talk a little bit more about that foundational shift. What was that like for you, and why was it so substantial to you that you continue to celebrate it today?
Yeah. So, to give context, in 2011, I was 18. And I was around that time, that was a freshman year in college. So this is like 2 months into college at this point, home alone, or like not home alone, I'm sorry, like far from home. It's like 6 hours. And so my depression, like just full throttle, was like, we're here. And then my manic episodes, mind you, this is before my bipolar diagnosis. So my manic episodes were high, my depressives were low. Everything was just in a constant state of pain almost. And so that October 16th specifically, that day I had enough. I had gotten a huge fight with my ex-boyfriend, whose sister took the phone and said, like, why are you talking to like this bitch? And she started cussing me out on the phone. And like I asked my ex-boyfriend, was like, why did she talk to me so mean? And he was like, because you deserve it. And so when I hung up the phone, I was like, you're not worth anything, dude. Like, no one's ever gonna love you. You're not anything. And so I broke the window to the 6th floor of my dorm, and I sat there, and I was like, not forcing myself to jump, but kind of like, if gravity wants to do what it wants to do, gravity's gonna do it. And so I don't know what happened. I always say it was like, and I'm not a religious person, but I do feel like it was like a voice of God or something, or some higher power, to be like, turn on your iPod. Because at the time, there were iPods, there weren't iPhones. So like, it was like, turn on your iPod.
I had one of them.
For you kids out there.
Yeah, you know. Google it. You don't know what it is yet. But it was like, go to your iPod and just press play. Just press play. Like maybe some depressive song will play and you could just cry your heart out. And that is exactly what happened. I know this is like a little controversial, but Demi Lovato's Skyscraper played. And I had an iPod of 6,000 and something songs. And out of all the songs that my iPod could have played, it played Skyscraper by Demi Lovato. And I was like, I never really listened to these lyrics before. And I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I like just put the window back. And I was like, just listen to this song. So all I did for the rest of the night was listen to it on repeat until the next morning, when I was like, let me Google Demi Lovato. Let me figure out a little bit about her. And I did. And I Googled her and I found out her story. And I was like, she's literally a few months older than me. And I was like, well, if she can get help, maybe I can too. What's so special about them that I can't do? Like, yeah, they're on Disney Channel. Yeah, they have money. But besides that, what is so special about them that I cannot reach that sort of sense of help as well? And that was what the shift was. It was very like, someone else can do it, so I can't too. And I think it was really awakening, particularly because she was my age. Because no one on everyone on Disney Channel, like I grew up with the Disney Channel era. I was Hannah Montana, I was That's So Raven, Lizzie McGuire. Like I was that era of Disney. And so everybody there was like this perfect girl. everyone was pretty and skinny and they could all sing and they could all dance and they could do everything. And no one looked like me and no one sounded like me and no one visually was having the issues that I was having until all of a sudden I find out that Demi Lovato's in rehab. And I'm like, oh, why are you in rehab? Oh, you're bipolar. Oh, that sounds kind of like what I have. And then it was my, maybe you can deserve help. I didn't do much motion until like a few months after. I like convinced myself, I was like, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe you're just being a drama queen. You know, maybe you're just being like loud. But then I like kind of froze up the second semester of freshman year. I was like, dude, you really need help. Like, get it. Please get it. And so starting sophomore year, that's when I enrolled in like the therapy program at my campus. And I found a therapist there and they were like, you need to level this up to a little bit more like professional diagnosis. So then that process started. And by December of my sophomore year, so that would be December 2012 is when I got the official diagnosis. Like, you are bipolar. And then everything just made sense. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, like, wow, I didn't deserve to die that day. I really didn't.
Yeah. That's so incredible.
That's like the power of music, the power of community. It's so much power in there, you know, and that's like a big reason why, like, I write how I write, when I write what I write. It's just because it's like maybe one person will hear this and maybe that'll help them. Maybe that'll help them to see that they're not alone, that they're not the only one who are going through what it is that they're experiencing. Like, and I've heard a lot of songs that I needed exactly when it was that I heard it. Like, yo, like, we've never met before. This song has been out for years. Why am I just now hearing these lyrics? But, you know, whether it be music or it be a book or it be like, I think that's the power of connectivity and community and the power of media, being able to tap into like media and use media in such a way that we can kind of lay these breadcrumb trails behind us so people can pick them up. Like, it's so much power in your story. I thank you for sharing that with us.
No, thank you for letting me.
Yeah. I think Keithy, you're such a, advocate. You've had to be such an advocate for yourself over and over again, you know, in so many different scenarios. And I think it's interesting that before you said Demi Lovato, you said, you know, this is a little controversial. And I know what you mean, because, you know, you bring up Demi Lovato, you hate her, you love her, you got all sorts of thoughts about her and everything. But the thing is, she has just been I think I might be messing up those
They
pronouns.
go by both. She, they.
Both. Okay. So they've been out loud about all this stuff about, like, you know, this is my mental health journey. Like, this is my addiction journey. This is my recovery. Now this is my relapse. Now this is my, you know, like all different and, you know, far beyond even that, very in the public eyes and since childhood. And, you know, and that's been hard, but then it's been, you know, life-saving for some people. It's, you know, caused a lot of, disagreement elsewhere, but like, there's just no, that this is just who this person is. And like, here you are, like, as showing up as you. I'm not trying to like say that you're just like Demi Lovato or anything like that. I'm just saying that like a thing that you are doing that is similar, that is like, so that that saves people, is the things that you're saying to this microphone. To say that just this past weekend, you had that urge that you almost reached for a bottle, like, that's badass. And like, that is a thing that people are afraid to say out loud, because a lot of us, I know, you know, if I was to say that to a lot of people in my life, like all of a sudden everybody's got plane tickets and they're in my house and now they're staring at me to make sure I don't pick up a bottle, you know, and like, we fear that. We fear losing our freedom. We fear that, you know, the drama. And, but to say it is to take the power away, is to really show ourselves that, like, I, again, just know that I deserve to be okay and I deserve to stay safe, so much so that I'm going to say this thing out loud because, this is a real thing that happened to me. And I just wanted to just say all those things very loudly, apparently, into the microphone, and just say thank you. Like, thank you for being here and saying these things and for advocating for yourself. And I'm sure so much of that you're bringing back to your family and to spaces where that might be not as talked about. And, you are that iPod now for people who are listening right now to this podcast. So.
Oh my God, that could be my Halloween costume.
Thank you so much.
I'm like last minute digging for something. I'm like, oh, no, thank you so much.
It is literally Halloween today. It is too late. If you can pull that off, you are a magician.
We gonna try. No, it's true. I do feel like, I think a big thing is like people treat recovery like it's like a broken leg and you put a cast on it and then it's like it heals. It's like, no,
Better.
this is like this is like a leg that like broke and like shattered and probably will never feel the same again. Visually, that's what it feels like. It's like you take a car to an auto shop and people think like you fix it and then you take it back out brand spanking new. And it's not like that. It's a consistent choice to always be like, do I need this? Do I like not need it? And so for me, it's like, if I stay quiet about my story, what is the point? Like, and I take the fact that Demi was very active about their story since a young age. I take that to heart because to me, it's like, why can't I do that for someone else? Why can't I talk about my story? Why do I have to be ashamed about it? Because I shouldn't be ashamed. I'm alive. I'm grateful to see another day. I don't care if it's raining or it's snowing or it's sunlight. There's a day out there that I can own that doesn't own me, that my struggles don't own me. And I think that's like a really big deal. I do want to say, like, when you mentioned that, like, I bringing it back to my family, I'm so grateful and like that I'm able to do that. Just like, I think it was like 2 months ago, my family and I went on this family trip to La República Dominicana. And my dad and I were just eating, and we've had so many conversations about my alcoholism. And then one of the conversations that we were having where I was like, I think a lot of it has to do with your negative viewpoint, Dad. And like, he was just so like available to the conversation. He dropped the machismo
Incredible.
of like being like, no, that's like a personal problem. My dad was like, okay, explain to me why you think that how I reacted to alcohol affects you. And I broke it down with him using, I'm not even joking, the movie Encanto, the Disney movie. Because I was like, Dad, it's like in Encanto, the generational trauma that abuela had, like explaining the whole story. And he's like, okay, I see it. I see that. And then I was like, you know, like in Coco, because my dad loves Coco. And he's like, I see, you know what? That's a better example. And I'm like, these movies have nothing to do with alcohol, but we're going with it. And he was just there like, bet. And so after that conversation, like I almost crying. My dad looked teary-eyed. He gave me a hug and he's just like, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm so proud that you came this far. And it's just like, to me, I hold that conversation so dearly because I'm like, wow, like it's been years and I can actually talk to my dad about, you know, his trauma and why did he react to alcohol the way he did and how that affected me. And he even gave me advice. And he was like, when you have your kids, maybe you should approach it this angle instead of this angle, the way that I went for it. And I'm like, that's a great idea, Dad. You will be there for these conversations, hopefully. But like, you know, hopefully like we can break this stigma in our family and we can break the cycle in our family. And it was just like a beautiful conversation to have.
Yeah, so I guess I'm watching Coco tonight. Sheesh.
You can watch it tomorrow because Dia de los Muertos starts tomorrow. So don't do it tonight, do it tomorrow. But tonight you can watch Encanto. Just saying.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we got a Disney person in our midst.
Yeah.
Not sponsored, but open to it.
Completely open. Pay my Disney Plus. Like,
I know, right?
No,
Like, Disney.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. I think that's absolutely beautiful, and I think also it's just something about like the openness, the transparency, the honesty. Like if Demi Lovato, which I'm not sure of why they're controversial. Y'all have to fill me in after the fact. But like Demi Lovato,
we might get some comments on the feedback forums. Really?
the
public will tell us.
All right, so I'm out the loop. So whatever I say, just know I'm out the loop. But like Demi Lovato writing the song and being open and honest and transparent about her circumstance, like literally had a ripple effect for you, Keithy. And then there's been times where, Keithy, you've been on staff calls and I don't remember what it was you said or how it is that you said it, but the way that you showed up, like, look, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but this was my intention. And so like open and honesty, like I'm working at it and I'm doing this and I'm doing it ugly and I'm showing up. And you also had just the energy of like, and this is what I want to contribute. And it was like I had to just reach out to you after that staff call, because it's like transparent people like attract transparent people. And I know what it's like to create those spaces. And I know how uncomfortable it could be to show up in spaces like that. But I know that uncomfortability is worth the curation of my environment, because it's going to scare away people and it's going to like push people away who aren't ready for that level of openness and honesty. But what it does, it also attracts the people who are. And so then you begin to create your support group, the people who are going to prop you up and be there for you and with you in the midst of your journey. So it's like, I always encourage anybody who is living an intentional life, like to work at being open and honest and transparent. Because even though it might feel cumbersome, it might feel full of resistance, like that's what's going to allow for you to build your truth into your success. It's going to allow for you to build the support into your environments, because you're going to attract people in circumstances and situations and places and things that will support that.
No, absolutely. I also feel like the best start for it, for anyone that's like listening and are like, I don't know how to be transparent, though I wish I could do, just being transparent with yourself first. Like admitting to yourself you're not having a good day. Don't try to pretend that you are. Why are you pretending? Embrace your feelings. Like, go sit and cry about it if you had a bad day. Like, be honest with yourself, because if you can't be honest with yourself, then you can't be honest with anyone else.
Keithy spitting. Oh, bars today.
Yeah, this is advanced grade, rise, recover, live. I tell you, if there's anybody out there listening who's like me, you might be like, oh crap. Because I know for me, I had to do a whole lot of fake it till you make it kind of thing with being transparent kind of externally, and before I was able to look in the mirror and do it. So I think sometimes that's the hardest thing, like to be able to like be honest with yourself, because then it's like, oh gosh, now I really have to face this thing, because once you can't unknow when you've got something in there that you need to get support on.
And also like the fake it till you make it, it sounds, I don't know, it just sounds a way. Sometimes people are like, well, why are you being fake? Blah, blah, blah. But I think that's helped me too, because I didn't see myself as somebody who told the truth when I began to pretend like, okay, I'm just a truth teller. Like, something that was told to me very early on was to practice the opposite. Some of the things that came natural to me was hiding. Some of the things that came natural to me was like to be quiet and don't speak up. Some of the things that came natural to me at that point was to lie, to cheat, to steal. And somebody told me like, well, practice the opposite of what it is that comes natural to you right now. It's like, okay, well, in this moment I'd run. It's like, so do I just stay? And they're like, yeah. And like, oh, this doesn't feel right, But over time, you fake it till you make it. It's almost like counter intuition until it becomes intuitive. Like practicing the opposite until it becomes your predominant. And it's not faking it, it's designing the life that you desire to live.
Yeah, definitely. Putting intention with what you do. Is there a reason why you're faking it till you're making it? Are you just faking it because you just want to be fake? Are you faking it just because you want people to leave you alone and you're like, yes, I'm fine, leave me alone? Or like, are you faking it because there's an intention, like, you know what, I'm going to convince myself I'm a bodybuilder every day until like I hit my weight goal, then that's faking it till you're making it in a positive way. But like relying on just faking it with no real intention, then you're not being transparent with yourself. You're not moving with intention in your life. So it's kind of like, what is your purpose of your day? What are you trying to accomplish in your day? And if you're accomplishing in your day, like just want to take a really long nap, then go for it. But be intentional about it. Like whether it's napping, eating, watching a movie, going to work and being the most successful employee, like whatever it is, moving with intention is really what it is. Like what you need to focus on.
That's interesting, because I often like try to use interchangeably on this show recovery and intentional living, just because I know some people may just be looking for tools and don't necessarily consider themselves to be in recovery that listen to this show. But as somebody who does both, and I think both are one and the same, right? Like I think it's just a language thing, and I think like a big chunk, like a big chunk of what I would define my recovery to be is just showing up intentionally. like intentionally living, showing up, fatherhood, interpersonal relationship, career, relationship to self, holistic. So, what I put in my body, where I put myself, the environment, like it's having that conversation. Like, do I belong here? Why am I here? If there's something that I don't desire, why don't I desire it? And, at the very least, beginning that conversation of intentionality. So yeah, I 100% wholeheartedly agree. And I think we are getting to the point of the day where we have to refer to Liz for Liz's special ultra magic exclusive one of a kind magnificence, all of the superlatives. Is that the word? Oh man, I think I messed that up. Anyways, all of the crazy words that can go in front of something. It's time for that question. Liz, why don't you take it away?
My goodness, I was going to do some theme music, but the adjectives in themselves were superlatives. And that was actually a really good
Superlative,
word.
that's what it is.
Did the trick. Yeah. Whoo-wee. Well, Keithy, as you might have heard, we ask this at the end of every episode, and there's obviously no right answer, no wrong answer. But if you could just pull back the curtain of time and send a message to a previous version of you, and send a message that does not have to be advice. It does not have to be anything. It might just be like, "Hey, you look cute today." What would you say to that version of you that you might be able to reach?
Stop spending so much money on concerts. No, the guac isn't worth it. I would just tell myself to not take myself so seriously and to lose the aggressiveness. I think when I was young and when I first started sobering up in general, I was very like, come at me, try me, go for it. Like I faked it. Like I was like this hard person. It's like, please, you love Disney, relax. You have footsie pajamas, girl. I don't know who you trying to fool. So like just being less aggressive, being kinder, like it goes a long way. And just like worrying less about things that are not in my control. And I'm so blessed to have the life I have now. I feel really bad when I say that sometimes, but it's like I have an incredibly healthy relationship with a man that I love so much. Like I have my best friends that I know are like my ride or dies, and I know like I will go to town for them. Like my family is so open to conversations now. I'm at a point where my mental health is great. My financial health can do a little better, raise. But like other than that, I'm doing so well in my life that like even 10 years ago I would not have believed this life would be mine. So just moving with kindness, being less aggressive. That's what I would tell myself.
I love it. How beautiful to have just so intentionally built a life that you want to be in, that you get to wake up and feel that you get to be glad to be there. That's incredible. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
We adore you. We adore you, Keithy. We're so glad that you came on this podcast.
Yes, we do. We're so appreciative. It has been such a privilege to have you on the show today.
What a fun conversation.
So much for having me.
It was our absolute pleasure, and we did it. So thank you, Bryce, and thank you, Keithy, for being just probably one of the most fun conversations that I've had. I don't even know. Certainly today. Certainly in a long time. This is the most I've laughed in a while too. So appreciate you both. And thanks everybody for being here with us. We could feel you laughing too on the other side. And we're so glad that you join us week after week. If you haven't already, please click subscribe. If you'd be so kind to review us, if you'd be so kind to rate us, those things help people to find us. What else should they do, Bryce?
Oh, so you're not going to steal my thunder today, huh?
Nope.
You're going to
giving you back your thunder.
So what else you should do is hop on over to the Phoenix app and see us in the podcast group within the Phoenix app. Come and talk to us. Like we want to hear back from you. What are you enjoying about the podcast? What are you not enjoying? Who have been some of your favorite guests? Who would you like to see on the show? We want to have a conversation with you, and that is the place that we can have that at. So head over to the Phoenix app. Once you download the app, head over to the podcast group and come talk to me and Liz. Like we're literally in there. Like I'm about to check on the app right now. Like it's me. It's Liz. Come holla at us.
Yay.
Holla.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Take care of yourself, and we will see you next time.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.